Hey, it's Mike Brennan. We're back again with MITech TV. We have Paul Eisenstein on from Headlight.News. Known Paul, gosh, 30 years or so. One of those auto pros that we work with in Detroit. One of the things that Paul alerted me to, and then did some reading on it. Apparently, there's been hackers at work. What else? Going after auto companies, auto suppliers, because they have a lot of money and they think that they can squeeze it out of them through ransomware. And so apparently Stellantis wasn't hit with a ransomware attack, some kind of hacking attack, but it didn't seem to get very far from my understanding. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, it looks like Stellantis has probably had the best possible outcome, at least what we know so far, based on a little they're talking about. Um, let me back up a little bit. Now, we have been seeing hackers increasingly target, well, everything, but particularly the auto industry. There's a lot of reasons for that. One, deep pocket companies that really can't take disruption of things like sales operations or production lines. And two, because there are so many potential ways to get into the computer networks that the automakers operate. They deal with hundreds, even thousands of suppliers and other vendors. And each one of those is a potential avenue into the corporate network. And that appears to be what's happened in Stellantis and also BMW, which was hit by an attack, or should I say, one of their vendors was hit by an attack just last week. Well, Jaguar Land Rover has been down for 3 weeks.
Or maybe
They
that's
were
what it
hit
was.
with a ransomware attack, and some reports have suggested that they could continue to have problems all the way through to November, though right now they insist that they are going to be back in operation. Their assembly lines will start rolling by the 24th, by this Wednesday. We'll have to wait and see if that actually is the case. The cost to them is phenomenal. They're losing at their U.S. Well, I shouldn't say U.S. Their European, Indian, and Chinese operations. Something like 1,000 Jaguars and Land Rovers a day. This is a significant impact, which the numbers add up to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $70 million in lost revenue a week. Potentially, they could make up some of that by going into overtime uh, later once they get this resolved. But the longer it goes on, the harder it's going to be to make it up anytime soon.
But what is actually down? I'm just curious about that.
Entire operation. It
Jeez.
shut down their assembly lines and everything. They are basically out of business right now.
Hmm, that's incredible. I mean, this sounds like it goes beyond a ransomware attack then.
Well, I don't know all the details. They haven't released everything, but it appears to be a significant situation that just shut the company down. Um, and the worst part, at least as far as the UK government is concerned, is that its impact is well beyond that of just JLR. About 200,000 people are involved in various supply relationships with Jaguar Land Rover. And that multiplies when you look at foreign operations.
Yeah, from what I read, they suspect a group out of Russia. What else is new? I mean, all the ransomware hackers, well, not all, but many of them come out of Russia, or they come out of North Korea, or they come out of China. China does it more of a. I don't think they do ransomware. They just want to mess people up. But certainly, North Korea has been using it to make money, and the Russians obviously
Yeah,
use it
well,
to make money. So.
yeah, the North Korea is such a desperate state when it comes to money because they have virtually no trade outside of one or two allies. That ransomware has become one of their primary sources of revenue. Uh, I believe, but I think I need to verify this a little more closely. That the ransomware attack hitting JLR is connected to the one that was attempted to be at BMW, which is a group called Everest, which they often refer to as Russian affiliated, which means that of course Putin and his secret service and the like are clearly in the know of what's going on. Now the good thing,
Well,
by the way, BMW same sort of thing.
right.
I spoke to a source who asked me not to identify him by name, but he said that they have not had any impact on production, and the actual impact is fairly limited so far.
Hmm. Okay. The other thing you wanted to talk about was on September 30th will be the last day for the EV tax credits being phased out. And I know there's been a real rush to buy EVs before the deadline. What's going to happen after the deadline?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I got a call just a few minutes ago, which pushed me a little bit behind, from somebody who I know works for one of the big local radio stations, and he is ready to lock down on a Blazer EV. He wanted to know about whether it'd be the right thing to do, and yeah, I think it would be for him. But he has to rush, he has to get it together, so he's trying to make decisions much faster than he normally would in buying a vehicle. So, for those who aren't familiar with it, of course, I think everyone knows that there are tax credits up to about $7,500, depending on the battery size and other factors that you might qualify for if you buy a battery electric vehicle. Uh, it does vary because uh, other factors that are included are where the vehicle is assembled, where the battery comes from, the raw materials, and so on. Curiously enough, there was a loophole in the law which allowed even vehicles that didn't qualify under the sourcing regulations to still get you a $7,500 credit if you leased. So most of the EVs that people have been acquiring, let's put it that way, over the last year or so, uh, have qualified for the $7,500. It goes away. Last day is September 30th. That said, it appears the IRS is going to allow people who can't take delivery before the end of the month. As long as the order is properly put in place, you'll be able to take delivery in the weeks later. But the bottom line is, when it goes away, that effectively works out to be a $7,500 price hike on battery electric vehicles. And that's a big hit.
So, what do you think is going to happen to EV sales, and where does this leave hybrids? I know some of the automakers, I think notably Toyota, have gone more in on hybrids than pure EVs.
Yeah, actually, uh, I'm going to be doing a story a little bit later talking about the fact that Porsche has decided to pare back its EV plans, putting more emphasis on hybrids and plug-in hybrids. And you've seen that pretty much across the industry. It just basically is the way of the world right now. Um, the president has made it so much less a friendly environment for EVs. He's tried to cut back on spending for the EV charging network that was approved under the Infrastructure Act and so on. In some states, they've been able to take action to continue to get the money, but in some states, basically, you're going to see a significant slowdown in the rollout of public charging. So, my own guesstimate is that we will see a slowdown, probably a sharp one in October, because a lot of people are moving up. They're buying or leasing their vehicles now to take advantage before the incentives go away. But stretching out over the next year to 18 months, I expect that we'll see a much lower rate. Um, I'm trying to remember. Let's see. That latest study came from Auto Pacific, which estimated that the market share of EVs between now and 2029 could drop to as much as half of what the original planet, what the original forecast was for the market share of EVs in the United States, probably down to 12% as opposed to 25, even possibly as high as 30%. Now, that's still not bad. In a 16 million market, a 12% market share does mean that you're talking about, let me see if I can do my quick math. That's still approaching 2 million EV sales a year at 12% of a 16 million car market. So it's not like EVs are falling off the face of the earth. But at 30%, we would have been talking about perhaps 5 million EVs or more going into the fleet every year.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And then the third thing you wanted to talk about is a story you're working on that's looking at when the Chinese enter the U.S. market.
Yeah. I spent a bunch of time last week at the management briefing seminar, which the Center for Auto Research puts on. I had a chance to spend some time with several folks, including Mike Dunn, who I'm not sure. Have you had him on the show? I think you may have. Mike is an old China hand, lived in China for a number of years. One of the most knowledgeable Westerners on the Chinese car market and Asian market in general that I know. And I've spoken to others, John Cassessa, former C-level exec over at Ford, and others in recent days. And the big question they have isn't if we'll see Chinese automakers land in the US market. It's more a question of when. Now, some people would argue that we know that Biden and then Trump have both taken steps to try to keep the Chinese out of the Chinese auto industry out of the U.S. market. We have a couple of vehicles that are here that are Chinese made, like the Volvo EX30, and of course we have one product from Lincoln, but that's and Volvo also, but that's about it. The Chinese would love to be here. It's obviously the world's second largest automotive market, but so far the White House has done everything to try to keep them out. It's a question of when, and it may be that as part of the supposed grand deal that Trump keeps saying he's working up with the Chinese, that getting into this market will happen. That's actually what all the experts that I've been talking to believe is going to happen, that we're going to see some sort of allowance for the Chinese to come into the United States. They're already in Mexico, and in fact, are dominating the EV market there, and they're doing very well in Europe. So, can we keep them out forever? Probably not. But you may want to ask me about how would they come into the United States? That could be an interesting deal.
Do you think it will be through EVs first?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's really what they're exporting. The Chinese auto exports have gone from about 1 million back in 2020 all the way to about 7.5 million this year, and virtually all of those are EVs.
Mm.
Now, what several of the folks, including Michael Dunn, believe will happen is that we will basically turn the tables on them. If you know anything about how the Chinese market works, if you are a foreign manufacturer, Ford, GM, BMW, you have to do it as a joint venture if you're going to set up an assembly plant there. Well, we may see a situation where they're told, okay, we'll let you in or we'll let a small number in, but it's going to be a joint venture with the American manufacturers.
Mm.
I'm not sure that the US automakers would necessarily be upset about that. For years, when the Chinese domestic manufacturers were starting out and they were struggling to figure out how to build cars, one of the problems was for Americans and others, as a part of these joint ventures, they had to give away a lot of the technology. Well, now that the Chinese know how to build cheap, fast, long range EVs, maybe if we do some joint ventures, we're going to be able to steal some of their technology.
A good note to end on since we're running out of time. Paul, how do folks reach out to you or read your publication? Where would they go?
Well, you can find me in a lot of different places, of course. I write for places like the Nikkei Auto Blog, Gear Junkie, and others. But you can also, and I hope people will check out my website. It's called Headlight.News. Headlight.News.